since Bitcoin's true freedom, BSV is also, of course, true freedom. And that, with that said, they would never get involved with the central banks. Now, hear me out. This is not me saying it. This is me showing you actual research to show you a different narrative, if you want to call it that, in regards to their pitch to the BIS. Yes, they're pitching to the BIS. And why that matters. Why it matters is the concept of the Finternet. Let's jump into that. Here it is, straight from this particular clip from YouTube. Now, I'm not going to play the whole thing. This actually dates back, to about 6 months ago. Some of you guys are aware of it. Some of you guys have seen this particular clip. But I'm going to elaborate further from this. I guarantee you there's going to be some research you haven't seen or heard yet. BSNES podcast, Finternet, the financial system for the future. Does BSV have a role in it? Do they currently have a role in it? Well, for me, currently speaking, the answer is no. But again, that pitch, what kind of value would that be? Why would they want to get involved with a centralized system if they are quote unquote freedom? Well, is it a case of if you can't beat them, join them? Not necessarily, but hear all different perspectives. Have a open ear, open mind to some of this. So I'm going to go ahead and fully expand this. We're going to play this particular clip, tie in everything in. Again, I'm glad to be back with you guys. Here we go.
I think you have to be imaginative and let your mind sort of fly. And all of this inspired, for example, by the history of the iPhone. We started with pagers, for example, where you just could exchange messages. Eventually, we had the apps. But at the end of the day, the iPhone, what it does is they bring all of these services together. So if we had each one individual services apart, we would not benefit of the whole, and the whole really makes a big difference.
The technology must be available to all. Many of you are carrying a smartphone in your pockets today. Many of you are regulators and policymakers in the room. As financial regulators, one doesn't regulate the smartphone itself. You regulate activities on top of it. If someone creates an application that starts taking deposits, one would get involved.
So you guys are all welcome to check out that full video. And again, if you're wanting to watch that, it's basically called BIS-NES Podcast and then -Finternet. You're going to see this article. It comes from project-syndicate.org, the rise of the Finternet. Now I'll just jump down to the key area of highlight, of emphasis. So it says here, basically, to this end, we have drawn on our joint expertise in economics and technology to offer a blueprint for the future financial architecture. Now I want you to, again, understand why sometimes I read this verbatim. Look what it says in the highlight on red. What we call the, quote, Finternet is a vision of multiple financial ecosystems that connect with one another, much like the internet, in order to give individuals and businesses full control over their financial lives. We foresee a world in which people and companies can cause any device to transfer financial asset. Now, before I read the rest, any device, okay? So when Augustine Carstens, everybody, was talking about, the concept of like what you can do offline, and we saw this call to action, especially with Quant, let's just be honest about some of this, and the RLN, and even the RSN, the Regulated Settlement Network. It's how do we give access to the unbanked? Obviously, Stellar puts a lot of focus on this. You could say Ripple, does this. But BSV definitely has a role in regards to this as well. And I understand that BSV doesn't have those partnerships with the central bank. Maybe as of yet, maybe they'll get there. A lot of people feel as though that the price that you see suppressed is so much more than what's going on with the Craig Wright situation. And I'm not going to do a deep dive about that. Again, there's great content creators that do an excellent job about that, like, Gavin Mail, Satoshi, and so on. But for the purposes of this, when we talk about that, there's a clear common thing in regards to common ground about, the unbanked and the technologies moving forward. Who plays a role in that? Does BSV really play a role in that? Well, again, we're going to get further into the weeds about this. So this next part about anyone in the world, in that transactions would be cheap, secure, near instantaneous, and available to all. All right. That's the bottom line in regards to all of this, okay? So again, Project Syndicate put this out many months ago, and if anything, I'll give you some things that are a little bit more, recent, okay? So enter into this, and I definitely think this is also worth pointing out. So I'm going to get into this, and what do you see here? This is from Finternet Lab, okay? And the reason why I'm sharing this with you on page 30 is because, again, this PDF about the Finternet, the vision for the future, of course, financial system. A lot of you guys that are your hardcore BSV people, you feel as though that BSV is going to be, the single ledger system. It's going to be all run through BSV and so on. And I get that. But again, some of these concepts. So how long ago was this one? Well, this was from August. This is from Nadan Nolakani. But financial innovation, of course, inclusion. When we talk about, for example, key things like, BSV, well, one thing that stands out is their tech and, obviously things like Terranode. So has this truly progressed around the world? Well, we see so many citations, whether it's a Unified Payments Interface, UPI, things like Stripe, Visa, MasterCard. But we know, for example, that there's going to be a big shift, especially when it comes to SWIFT, when it comes to mandates. The whole thing with ISO 222. And if anything, MasterCard especially, right? You saw recent partnerships with Stellar. You saw the whole thing of, Quant, Hedera, for example. I should include that as part of the show. But nonetheless, all of these play a key factor in regards to all this. Now, jumping into page 30 of this particular Finternet GFF deck.pdf, you're going to see the whole concept of an open source sandbox to demonstrate diverse use cases. Why is this important? Well, it has to be appealing to developers. But when you get into the weeds about this, financial institutions can manage tokens. So, from the BSV side of these things, it's like, well, we don't want that. And I get that. But again, why are they making a pitch to the whole thing of the BIS? And then you may think, like, nah, they never did that. Trust me, I'll show you that they did. And again, I'm not trying to make this controversial. I'm just trying to show you some things to open your eyes to a different perspective that maybe you don't know about or, basically aware of. Public authorities can participate as observers. Again, when we talk about the whole thing of regulatory clarity, what do we really have? All right, so getting more into the right side, I'm going to put some emphasis on a Finternet sandbox. Why, again, get into the weeds about this? Well, understand that Finternet aims to enable multiple ecosystems to interconnect, much like the internet, and thus empowering 8+ billion individuals and 300+ million businesses by placing them at the center of their financial lives. It is a user-centric, unified, and universal approach, of course, to finance. The objective of the sandbox is to encourage participation of various technical service providers and asset issuers on the Finternet. The prototype provides a set of protocols and, schemes along with a developer sandbox. And you see how this all works, right? How it's orchestrated and so on and so forth. But the bottom line is that it is there, okay? Getting more further into this, if you go to finternet-playground.vercel.app, what's one of the first things you see? Well, use cases, bank account tokenization, domestic money transfer, but this area about what's called MyProp. MyProp gives you access to your property via unified interface and unlock the power of seamless transactability. Now, look what it says. Sign in with the Finternet. Like, this is actually a product at this particular point. Property tokenization, activity log, everything has to be immutable, verifiable, so on and so forth. Now, where I'm going with this is this. Okay, you guys are fully aware of Mr. Michael Saylor, MicroStrategies. He's always stating that, in his opinion, Bitcoin, and let's face it, he's referring to BTCs, definitely not referring to BSV. I get it where we're going with this. But he refers to BTC, unfortunately, as being digital property. When we get more into the weeds about this, notice the terminology about, quote unquote, that property. All right, so what else do we have in regards to this, and why, again, does it matter? Well, jumping into this next part of the emphasis, okay, as I blew this up, even into the code from GitHub. Some of you guys are familiar with GitHub. What do you see? It's a breakdown. And here's the key area, the MIT license. Now, I will give, the whole thing a Quant a shout out. So Massachusetts Institute of Technology has been doing for a while now the whole collaboration with Quant Network. We know that. We've been there, done that. Thomas Harjano of MIT. And, he even has the connections to what is referred to as the IETF, the Internet Engineering Task Force. And we'll get more into that here in a bit. But again, that license comes from MIT. And how many projects have we been studying in regards to Quant, Project Hamilton, Project Roslyn, some of these other ones recently, Project Agora. But again, where does something like BSV play a role? Now, here is some of your aha moments here in a bit. Before we get into the aha moments, emphasis on token managers, individuals and businesses, trust service providers, and again, the whole concept of what, everybody? The unified ledger, ledger infrastructure, the sandbox, how we are able to track all this, especially when it comes to repo swaps and authentication. But again, this area about unified ledger, contract marketplaces, Finternet playground, okay? Because that now will take us over to here. This area is so worth looking into. Why? Well, shout out to CoinGeek. CoinGeek does a great job of specializing in, the whole concept of BSV all the time, but it's their pitch. Are you aware that they actually pitched what they got going on to the BIS? Now, again, don't shoot the messenger here. Maybe you don't like hearing stuff like this. This is not FUD. But for me, when we talk about the whole concept of or get off the pot, well, if you had the best tech out there, and I always will give BSV the props as far as having like the best of the best when it comes to, come on, Terranode. I mean, nothing competes with that, right? The tech of BSV is profound, right? I mean, even compare it to things like XRP. Don't get me wrong, I love my, XRP army. I'm very well diversified. But you compare like transactions per second, if that's your only focus, there is no comparison. They just blow everything completely out of the water. And I would say the only thing that would come in second place would be probably the whole thing of like, if Ripple needs to scale up, there is the M10, they can do 1 million TPS on that financial side of things, right? And that's, again, we've done the research on that. And even with Quant, XDC, and all these other ones, the M10 is a real thing. So my attitude is on both sides, whether you're a BSV maxi or you're like me, you're into both, you can see that there is a scalability solution for both. But the pitch from BSV, and that's the whole point. And if anything, what does it say? Well, there was various projects, whether it was Project Symbiosis or Arum or Hertha, but it's that opinion. Every project, like they mentioned from CoinGeek.com about BIS tokenization, every project the BIS is launching for 2024, which is coming to an end here soon, can benefit from the public proof of work blockchain, namely, of course, BSV. Unlike many better known blockchains, the BSV blockchain is infinitely scalable and is set to process 1 million transactions or more per second this year. As for fees, they cost around, and listen to this, 0.34502. The only one that I know off the top of my head, and of course this is subject to change, that would be technically cheaper would be what? Stellar. I believe that they are 501. Maybe it's now 2, but that would be the only one that would stand out. And of course, first TPS wise, BSV would blow it out of the water. But every single one of these are playing a key role when it comes to this concept of unified ledgers, regulated settlement networks, and of course the RLN. All right. So as I get further into this pitch from BSV says it's a fantastic to see global governmental bodies and institutions recognize the benefits of tokenization. Right, we get that. But it says at the beginning of 2024, no blockchain, and I would agree with them, can scale to the levels of BSV blockchain. It was literally designed for enterprise and government purposes like those outlined by the BIS. Now again, not my words, theirs. Don't shoot the messenger. Some people, they don't like this. They don't like this. They don't like seeing it. But the key thing is world's only enterprise-grade blockchain. Is that a true statement? Well, again, draw your own conclusion. But like it says here, it's about time. What's about time? You know? Well, this is a real long video. But again, the tags. We always cite these things about the tags. Bank for International Settlements, Bitcoin SV, BSV blockchain, and here's the key areas. Swiss National Bank. Emphasis will be on the Swiss National Bank as we get further into it, because we know that when it comes to the BIS, they are, of course, the central bank of central banks. They are the Swiss National Bank of, let's face it, Swiss banks. And of course, you see the World Bank. As we get further into this, I also want to take you over to this key area, because we did mention the whole thing of Swiss national banks. What do we have in regards to this? Well, citation comes from CoinGeek once again. Swiss National Bank wary of Bitcoin and Ethereum. Now, is this a little bit more recent? The answer is yes. Swiss National Bank wary of Bitcoin and, of course, Ethereum, and it states plain as day at the beginning of the outline, or this article, Swiss National Bank Chairman Martin Schlegel recently said that the bank is wary of digital currencies like Bitcoin and Ethereum. With that said, he spoke at an event. He highlighted how the fluctuating value of such currencies made them impractical for payments. Right. So again, you know, whether you're Michael Saylor and so on, if you're on a peer-to-peer cash system as originally written in the Bitcoin original white paper, the Satoshi Nakamoto white paper, does this follow that whole idea of a Bitcoin, peer-to-peer cash system? Clearly it does not. But what one does truly follow that? Well, of course, you guys know the drill. It would be technically BSV. Are there other players in regards to it? Well, you could say that they follow the model of the white paper, but does it really truly have the scalability of something like BSV? So there was this event. This again was last month, highlighting the fluctuating value of such currencies made them impractical for payments. Again, recognizing that BTC and Ethereum are totally impractical, especially when it comes to cross-border payments. Doesn't matter if we're covering BSV or not, the Ripple XRP, RME, Stellar, and so on, you name it, XDC, they all agree, right? And that's why there's so much emphasis on this. So this whole thing about the Swiss National Bank embracing some of the industry cutting-edge technology, currently running pilots to test central bank digital currencies, CBDCs. All right, so there's a perception versus reality, and again, how this all comes together, okay? It says here, specifically, it says, the argument about energy use stems from BTC's inherent lack of utility. It would be much easier to defend it if it was powering a high volume of daily transactions, including, of course, payments for commerce, micropayments, applications, and all of the innovative use cases for tokens. Yet none of this is happening with BTC. Right. Truthfully, all this is and more is happening on BSV. We've been there. We've done that. But here's the interesting thing. People may have never fathomed this. So again, a pitch to the BIS? Yes. For BSV, yes. Plain as day. Look at this. Central banks continue to innovate using blockchain. Despite the unfortunate consequences of BTC advocates' chosen path, central banks like Swiss National Bank, European Central Bank, and others are utilizing digital ledgers and blockchains to innovate. Project Enbridge, which we know about, especially when studying Quant and XRP and stuff like that, previously overseen by the BIS, is definitely an example of how blockchain tokenization are being used to speed up cross-border payments. Many other examples include ECB's progress with digital euro, China's digital yuan, etc., etc. But the BIS foresees the total value of tokenized assets at $2 trillion by 2030. If anything, that probably would be incredibly higher than that. All right. So do they cite, BlackRock? I mean, it's crazy to see somebody like, BSV mention anything about BlackRock, but they do mention that. They mention that central banks and financial giants like BlackRock, entrepreneurs, and established businesses will continue to build scalable blockchain solutions for scalable utility chains. Shout out to Cool Cat Crypto. He always said, you better believe guys like Larry Fink are fully aware of BSV. Well, if that's the case, why would they be fully aware of it? Again, enter in Terranode. And we already done that. Because like it says, Terranode is the digital backbone, of course, of Bitcoin. We are scaling out Terranode. You guys have seen some of these videos, and we'll present that to you. But when we get back into the whole thing about the BIS, understand, of course, a rich history, date back to 1930, 94 years ago. And as you see, that the Bank for International Settlements location is literally in Basel, Switzerland. Okay. And of course, the current general manager, who he's stepping down, I think, a little bit later next year, is Augustine Carstens. There's background in regards to the Rothschilds. Again, some people in the BSV community, they don't want to hear this stuff. And again, I'm not trying to make that FUD or controversy. For me, again, I'm an investor. I'm gonna invest in some of this stuff because it's coming whether we like it or not. But here's the thing. Again, that pitch. Because what do we have? Well, let's jump back into what we have. Because when we get into specifically what we have, BSV states to the BIS, plain as day, from bsvblockchain.org, that more still needs to be done in regards to making crypto assets ready for the central banks. But they claim, as in BSV, that they are, in fact, the best blockchain for governments and businesses. Some people, again, feel as though that when you get the government involved, well, you know, is that going to be true freedom? And again, I don't want to make this too much of a debate about that. You can draw your own conclusion. But global adoption of business, or I should say blockchain technology, does require enterprises and lawmakers. You do need that whole thing of regulatory clarity. But just in case if you weren't aware of it, with massive scaling, micropayments, greater data capacity, and reliably lower fees, BSV blockchain is the best blockchain for enterprise-grade application services, already being used to build applications for diverse industry sectors. But just like what you saw, everybody, I'll come back in the frame, in regards to Hedera, Algorand, they even added Ripple. They added some other key ones, right? The DREC Alliance. Well, instead of having an alliance for all that, is BSV supposedly the one-stop shop where it's just them? They have something similar. Well, the answer is yes. Just like the DREC Alliance's concept, you also have that product underneath the sweet umbrella of BSV blockchain. And shout out to Quant in regards to this. These are, of course, screenshots taken from a cell phone and whatnot. Some of this is blurry, some of it isn't. But again, Finternet. Okay. And as we get further into this really, here's some of your aha moments. Because when we get into this, to see this person, Rohan Sharan, dating back last summer, 2024, it really opens your eyes. And again, this was a great catch by Quant Papa. Good morning, folks. I am Rohan Sharan, founder of Timechain Labs. I came here after the talk of Nandan at GFF. The idea of Finternet movement is, of course, fantastic. Goes on to mention, thanks for this initiative. This was the only way divided blockchain ecosystem going nowhere can actually reconcile and achieve real impact at scale. Again, emphasis on scale. I shared a similar vision for the financial system at Date conference in November. And of course, he has a link to that. Timechain Labs offers a white label custodial wallet service for real world assets. Again, how many times have we talked about real world asset tokenization and some of these key things? But it says he's got this thing called Assetizer and a tokenization service basically for real world assets. There's a team of 28 people at TCL. They worked on fintechs, banks, businesses across different countries, legal compliant, real world use cases for blockchain, supply chain, financing. And when you hear supply chain, you will actually see an example of XTC. And I did include that. So we'll get into that in a bit. But look what it says. Conditional loans, CBDCs, P2P loan engine with collateralized securities. So a lot of us really feels, well, when it comes to like ISO 222 messaging, XDC stands out in regards to, using that for collateral. But tokenized tickets, prepaid credits, DPP. I mean, I don't know if you guys remember me covering some of this stuff. There's a particular gentleman, really nice guy from Norway, from Unisat. He reached out to me, and I was talking about this thing called the DPP mandate and where BSV stands out in regards to that. So to even see some of this, it's like, yeah, there's other projects, not just Unisat, that understand this concept of that particular mandate. And we're always talking about mandates on this channel. Again, I'm going to get into why I'm bringing this to you and why I support. So DPP, digital twins, how many times do I talk about some of this stuff when it comes just to jazz me? But working closely with the European partners for the implementation of DPP in Europe. Again, their particular mandate. Now this gets good, guys, real good. Because again, in this screenshot, it says that this gentleman, okay, again, just in case you forgot his name, he is Rohan Sharan, okay? He's been in blockchain space since 2014. Again, just like Stefan Eckel from Uniswap, 10 years now. He was at IIT KGP. He witnessed the birth of Ethereum, the fall of layer 2's solutions, whether you agree with that or not. But again, is India believing in achieving a similar vision to the unified ledger? That's the bottom line. Does he recognize things like Terranode? He does. 1 million plus TPS. And he even cites the whole thing of AWS and SPV edge wallets with deep integration, of course, IPv6. BSV always stands out with the concept of IPv6. Now, here's your aha moment. Because when we talk about the whole concept of the Finternet, well, again, Augustine Karsten's vision of what we can do offline. All right, so here it is. Let's get more into this. You will see the whole concept of cryptographic keys for truly IP to IP or offline with NFC asset transfers. Again, IPv6, BSV, Terranode, you get the gist. Well, back to this guy, the guy that we started off with, Rohan Sharan, founder and CEO of Timechain Labs. Again, why point this out? The reason why I'm pointing this out is just in case you missed it from earlier. Well, what do we have? He's the same guy pitching this literally to the BIS, right? About like how they would like to be a dev, if you will, and build, right? And again, coming from over, from BSV. So what you see here, I gotta jump back to it, is Timechain Labs, future of finance. All right. And if anything, I'll hit a like. Okay. I want you to hear this. You have to hear it. Because when he gets into the weeds about what is instant, what is programmable, even with Quant, we always talk about programmable money, how it will be automated, how it would scale. I got into the key highlights. Listen to it for yourself. And then after that, we'll wrap everything up and why it matters. BSV pitched to the BIS? Are you kidding me? And how about BSV and Quant mentioned in the same breath? Are you joking? Yeah, it's a real thing. So I'm going to go ahead and play this. Smash the like if you haven't done so already. Really appreciate you guys. Here we go.
There are different types of innovative payment solutions that can be created with CBDCs that we have been working upon with CBDCs. And that is, you can divide payments into a lot of criteria that this table I have provided here shows. There are micro payments that are possible, there are streaming payments that are possible, there are conditional payments that are possible, and automated payments that are possible. Micro payments on the internet are payments of amount less than $1. And that is what powers a data economy that can happen with CBDCs. Streaming payments are to stream payments just like you stream data on the internet. Conditional payments is to write conditions for the payment to happen. Automated payments are scheduled payments. And all of this is powered with the central bank digital currency that is programmable. Now this, when it is rising, you're having a new standard created. But this is the central bank creating the tokens. If you look at the layers of money, that's the M0 layer of money. But then there is the M1 layer of money, which is by banks. Now banks have got deposits, and deposits can get tokenized. Fixed deposits that are locked right now can be used in a smart contract to prove that you have this many amount of fixed deposit, and you can get a loan on top of it. You can get a credit on top of it, and you can have liquidity with that and build other layers of solutions as fintechs using those fixed deposits as tokenized amounts to show these are the different use cases of payments. You can use the fixed deposit for payments itself. You can use it for settlement and trading. You can use it as collateral for escrow payments, for holding conditional payments, and for liquidity, for guarantees. What could guarantee look like? You have a fixed deposit that is essentially showing that you have this much amount in your bank account, and with that you have a credit. You can avail a credit from another bank because you have the proof that you have this much of deposits with you. Now these are the use cases, and with this you can even go into different sectors and verticals into specific niches like You can go into time-locked contract to create trusts for children. You can go into goal-based savings. Let's say you have a goal of achieving some kind of spending criteria later on. Let's say you're saving for your children's education. You can have goal-based criteria for making savings of fixed deposits. You can go into escrow services. That's very critical between different businesses where trust is needing to be established. And trust is where blockchain again comes in as a shared ledger, because you have the escrow locking in the money as a fixed deposit between the entities that are interacting, and it can only get unlocked with the condition when the payment conditions are satisfied. So this is what really automation of finance is all about. And this is where the DeFi is at the core of it, the decentralized finance. And the shared ledger that powers all of it, that connects all of it, is at the core. Now, there is another term that you will come across. The reason why I mentioned the term shared ledger and not a distributed ledger technology, which you will hear by many people, is that distributed ledgers fragment into multiple ledgers, and you lose the benefits of a shared ledger in the first place. And you're back to a system that exists already right now with different ledgers disconnected all across the world, and they're not shared. If the ledgers are not shared, it's like the internet revolution came, but you are going back to the system where the computers are there which are disconnected. And you're not unlocking the value of connected computers. Just like that, you're not unlocking the value of a shared ledger. And that's where the beauty of the globally shared ledger comes in. And that's what our vision is of the financial future, a connected future, where shared ledgers, tokenization, CBDCs, and DeFi, the decentralized finance, can all be powered and come together to create the new financial ecosystem. We at Timechain Labs are pioneering the digital economy transformation with financial automation. We are building no-code, low-code platforms for programmable CBDC, programmable wrappers for what is issued to you as digital rupees right now, and that are issued on the blockchain, and you can have programmability on top of CBDCs. CBDC currently in India that is issued doesn't have programmability. You can have programmability with the wrappers we have built. We have built deposit token platform for banks, and that can be used by you guys to develop solutions by different banks. And we power all of it using the BSV blockchain, which is a highly scalable blockchain. And that creates and solves the problem of the fundamental problem that existed in the ecosystem of blockchain scalability.
Okay, so from there, he pretty much wraps it up. Specifically mentions BSV. Now check this out. If we jump over to his site, okay, you will see from timechainlabs.io this key area. And again, creating value, integrated solutions for diverse sectors. Governments, banks, universities, regulators, startups, NGOs, pretty much everything he mentioned earlier. Even like Quant, cybersecurity. Again, you see all this, right? Real estate, integrated solutions for a diverse industry. All right, impressive. Very, very impressive. Here's where things get really, really interesting. Shout out again to Quant Papa for this highlight, okay? So if you look at this Google patent, blockchain communications and ordering, well, again, why is this important? Well, we can get more into the weeds of this, and this would take 3 or 4 hours. I don't want to do that. But it's the classification in regards to this specific patent. G06Q3006, buying, selling, or leasing transactions. A lot of you guys have talked about some of this, about like even with things like Ripple and so on. All right, here's what's interesting. If you jump down to this key area, back to that whole thing of GB2017, which would be 2017, 111879D0. Why again is this worth looking into? Well, you see, even from, I guess, apparently originally September 6th of 2017, Enchain Holdings. And what does it say next to it? Computer implemented system and method. All right. Is there something else we have in regards to this? Yeah, there definitely is. Because when you go to the top of this, other than recognizing there's things like Intel and Royal Bank of Canada and all these other ones, even Thunder Token, shout out to Rue Black for covering that in the past, right? If you go to the very top of this, what do you see? You see that you have the whole thing of blockchain communications and ordering, and boom, US 202.003 11718A1, United States, and inventor Gilbert Verdian, Colin Patterson, Gaetano Mondelli, Palo Tasca. And what do you see? Current assignee is the Quant network. So N-chain, Quant network? Huh. Wow. And look at the list of events. You have the priority of all this. You have the application filed by Quant Network. You have what's assigned, again, to Quant Network. So again, N-chain side of buying, selling, and leasing transactions, and Quant side in regards to this particular patent for blockchain communications and ordering. Because earlier we heard about the whole thing, like you saw from that gentleman when he was giving that pitch, was everything has to talk to each other. Well, how many times did Gilbert Verdian talk about the concept we can't have walled gardens and silos and all that? Right. Common ground here. Now, getting more into the weeds again of this is understanding, even from, like I said earlier, the N-chain side of things. So I'm going to blow this up, take you over to here, and again, why share this? Well, it's because you see here, remember how we talked about Quant in UK? So computer implemented system and method, patents, classifications, hash tables. All right, current assignees, N-chain. Okay, and you see worldwide applications, all the big players, United States, Japan, all over the place, right? But this time, again, application filed, of course, by N-chain, and we know the whole thing of N-chain, BSV. We get the gist. Bitcoin is supposed to be a hedge against inflation. How many times have you heard that? But in reality, if you look more into it, it's a hedge against money printing, and always has been and always should be, right? But if that's the case, then you look at BTC, it doesn't really seem like it's following that peer-to-peer cash system. BSV definitely does. Getting more into this, and again, why I'm pointing it out to you is this particular document. It's smart derivatives contracts from concept to construction. King and Wood Mallisons, ISDA, smart derivative contracts from concept to construction. Again, some of the key terminology. Because again, this is a white paper, and I'm not going to go through all 28 pages of smart derivative contracts from concepts to construction, but I will give you some key highlights here about it and why I'm bringing it to you guys, whether it's the whole concept of, the legal terminology and, where everything that matters comes together. Because for me, it's validation. That far right side about how you can validate templates having the same legal effect as legal terms of derivatives contracts. Again, back to the gentleman you saw earlier from, Timechain Labs, okay? And how he says, hey, I'm from, basically BSV. But a common ground of they want to develop into this thing called the Finternet. Again, why? Well, lots of opportunity there because it's the connections. And as you also see here in the highlight, transparency, document signing, processes. The application ensures that documents are tamper-proof, simplifies the verification process, fosters trust, streamlining workflows in sectors where documents have integrity and they're paramount. And look, literally right below that, you see Andrew Carrier of the Quant Network. And we know about him. But again, it says, while unregulated crypto experiment is clearly or has clearly failed, there has been many boring use cases, funny the terminology, of how those prioritize security, regulation, and efficiency. That is making a real difference in improving everyday applications. And again, we understand how Quant's authorized plays a factor. But again, both of these mentioned literally in the same breath, and they give you an idea of what's next. Even referencing the quote-unquote competition. Oh no, we should never talk about that. But anyway, there it is. All right, here's the icing on the cake. Here's how we bring it all full circle. Literally cited from Quant Network. Here's the highlights. You see the whole thing about the Finternet, unified ledgers, Finternet, again, unified ledgers, it's in their own view from the Quant network that interoperability protocols limited to a particular distributed ledger technology, again, back to that pitch you saw from the Indian gentleman, right, would not be appropriate and instead will most likely see gateway-specific protocols, as this will allow for easier integration. Think about the terminology when it comes to that integration. What is involved is that API orchestration and how that basically all works. And again, that's where it's at for me. So to see all this, I think speaks absolute volumes. Whether you're a fan of Quant, whether you're a fan of BSV, or even recognize the whole thing of XDC, supply chains, these guys will recognize their tech. And if anything, recognize interoperability to solve real world use cases at scale. So do me a favor, if you listen to this outline, and simply type this into the comments. And that is FIN, as in short for the Finternet. And I'll know that you listened to the entire outline. I really appreciate you guys listening to these outlines. As the saying goes, know what you have, know why you hold it. The research trumps FUD 110%. I'm rooting for all you guys' success moving forward, whether you're a fan of whatever particular technology and so on. But for me, to finally see Quant, BSV mention the same breath, had to get into the weeds of it. Even honorable mention XDC.
If managing your crypto feels like solving a puzzle, it's time to switch to Decent Wallet. So just a few taps, you can manage, track, and secure your crypto with unmatched ease. And here's the best part. Grab your Decent Wallet at a discounted price by using the referral link below. Don't miss out on making your crypto experience smoother and more secure.